Thank you. Okay, I guess this evening we're going to talk a little bit about Knapp's, which has been probably part of most of my whole life. I've been involved with this store. So on March 26, 1946, at 141 College Street, which was down on the corner of South Pardee and College, is where the first day of business. They bought it was an existing franchised Firestone dealer store at the time. They bought it off of a gentleman by the name of R.H. Wood, that I know really nothing about him, but that's what I hear. I was only like 5 years old at the time, so I didn't get involved in too much of those transactions. But it was purchased by Vern and Roy Knapp. And the two of them were not brothers like it's sometimes stated in some of those Wadsworth books. Actually, Vern was my father. He was the older one. He was actually Roy's uncle. Roy was my dad's oldest brother's oldest son, so that made Roy my dad's uncle. He was about 15 years older than Roy. But before they became tire dealers, they both of them ended up working at City Bakery in Akron. They were both bread men. So you go from a bread man to a tire dealer, I guess you know, natural step. But in 41, when the war broke out, my dad was already married, had a family, me, and he was too old to go, so he run this bread route the entire length of the war. We lived in Akron at the time, and his route was in Kent, but he was gone every day, all day, delivering bread. They'd run a different route every day, and you know, because that little white City Baker truck sat in our drive for years. I remember that. But Roy, then being younger and still single when the war broke out, he of course had to go. And when he got discharged, and I'm not sure about that, probably 45 or so, he also went to work at City Bakery, which was a very large bakery at the time. They had about, I don't know, 200 to 300 delivery trucks. They did a lot of home delivery, and then they had about I think 3 retail outlets in Akron over on Grant Street. So they both did that, and for some reason, and I don't know why, they discovered this Firestone store for sale in Wadsworth, because neither one of them, I don't know, were ever around Wadsworth much. They were both born and raised in Portage County out around Randolph, and all lived in Akron. But anyway, they decided to buy this Firestone store, which is, when they opened, it was just this part over here. This came later. This was the store, and as you can see, it's really hard to tell in this picture. It's blurry, but at the time, Firestone was a Firestone Home and Auto, which meant exactly what the name says. It sold everything for the home, from appliances to, later on, they did sell TVs even in the 40s, bicycles, lawnmowers, wagons, you name it, we sold it. And then tires, of course, and batteries. But the store, if you can picture where it is, it was before they built that new one on the end. It was simply just a store, and the back of it was there was an alley run from Wadsworth all the way up the back of that, all those stores from Wadsworth down. And they had built a little extension on the back of the building with 2 bays on it. But to my knowledge, I never seen any vehicles in there when I was out there hanging around, but I think all the tire changing got done outside in the alley. So this went on for about a year, from March of '46 until early in '47. They got a hold of that gas station, which was up there from Park Nicodemus, ran that Fleetwing station. It was on the corner of, could you back it up, Drew? Which was on the corner of South Pardee and College. Yes. All right. And then now we have a place to work on the cars. So, you know, they had the bays in there. Notice the hospital sign still down South Pardee. And it's hard to read in this picture. Oh, Route 224 still runs through town. And so there we were able to work on the cars then finally to get them in, get them up, and do whatever they needed to be done. And then flip it. And then we also did a lot of, at the time, there was a lot of farming in this area, a lot of farm tire work, which meant going out to the farm to fix the tires, because you probably don't realize that most rear tractor tires are what they call hydroflated. That means they're full of water and calcium chloride for weight. So instead, the farmer, even though most of them had a truck, they couldn't simply take the wheel off the tractor and bring it in because it was so heavy, you just couldn't handle them. So you had to go out there and to the farm with that truck, and you'd have to change it right on the tractor. You wouldn't even take the wheel off, take it out, and then when you put it back together, we'd buy that calcium chloride in 50-pound bags, put it in a 55-gallon drum, mix it with water, and then it would pump into the tire, fill the tire up with almost 2/3 of the way with this calcium chloride and the rest with air. And it was so heavy that you couldn't, they used it for traction. But, and that went on for quite some time because there was quite a bit of farming around here then, because this is still in the early, 47, 48. And then, while I was digging through this stuff, when I knew I had to do this, I was digging through this, found some stuff that I didn't even know we had. I come across some old financial statements from, one of them was from 2007. It even has a lot of account receivables on it, of which that included the store and the station. And I read through those names. There's probably over 200 names on there that already had accounts with it, either at the store or the station. And I guess you can tell I'm getting old because I can remember most of those names. So I think they became, a lot of them were lifetime customers of ours until they died, because most everybody on that list, I think, has passed away. A lot of commercial, there's probably about 30 commercial accounts on there. Jackie, your dad was one of them, Sifferts. And out of all of them, there's only 3 of them left in business today besides us. Well, one of them was Smith Dairy, of course, but they're not in town anymore. The other 2 are J.C. Whitlam Manufacturing and Bexler Electric, of course. And everybody else is gone. When you read that, I got to lay them back there if you want to look. You're welcome to look at it. It's kind of interesting. Oh, And then while I'm digging through the pictures, I find this picture of a bowling team we must have sponsored. So does anybody know anybody on there? No. No. Yeah, Joe Malici, the mailman. Tony Bulami. This is my dad. Apparently we were the sponsor. He's holding the trophy. This, I can't think of this guy's name. I don't know who that is. This one is Paul or Pinky Hutchison. I think he worked for Goods Sparkle Market. And this is George Kraska. He worked for the city. But I just threw that in there in case anybody remembered any of them. Of course, they're all gone by now. So, we're still living in Akron at the time. Roy lived in town, and he got married on, and I got to introduce Jack, Roy's oldest son, Jack Knapp, and his wife, Jane, and my wife, Tony. But Roy did, when did they get married? Pretty...
Well, I was born in 48, so...
Okay.
Might have been around 40.
We'll say 40, okay. But anyway, Roy's got... But he got married then, and then he had 6 kids. Jack being the oldest, Kathy, Jimmy, Mike, Jerry, and Bob. Kathy and Jerry have passed away, and Jack, Jimmy, and Mike still live in the area, and Bob's out of state. And I have no brothers and sisters, it's just me, so. And I can still remember, too, if, I suppose nobody in here remembers the Midway truck stop, do you? Wadsworth had their own truck stop out on Broad Street. Across from Wadsworth Ford. Yes, exactly. It's the building was still standing there till they tore it down and built that new body shop. Well, anyway, and I can remember this. We still lived in Akron. I was probably maybe 9 or 10 years old. On Sunday morning, Roy and my dad, and they'd take me along, I don't know why, but we'd go out to the Midway and mount some new truck tires. There's several guys in town that owned some steel trucks. They didn't drive them, they owned them, and one of them was Lou Guiley, I remember. The other was, I think Don Close had Close's Food Locker. Anyway, they owned these trucks, and on the weekend when they'd be home, and they'd park them out there at the truck stop, and if they needed tires, I guess we went out there, and when I should have been in church, I'm out there mounting these truck tires, see. But anyway, it was good training, I guess. You got to learn how to do that. So in 1952, then, they'd been operating in those 2 places all this time. And like I said, we still lived in Akron prior to 51, but I would, as I got a little older, I would come out on a Saturday with my dad and mess around out there all day in the store or in the gas station. And I can remember Al Schaefer's dad, Bob, worked for us for a number of years. And he was maybe 10 years older than me, so I got to know Bob pretty good. We'd mess around when he was working. But, and I do remember quite a bit of stuff when I was out there messing around, and maybe in the afternoon I'd go up to the Star Theater and catch a cowboy movie. It was still open there. I think it closed in 50. But then in 52, they decided they needed more room. So, and the Star Theater, like I said, had been closed since 1950, so they decided after some extensive remodeling of that theater building that's what ended up. They had to, of course, level the floor in the store, and in the back, off of Wadsworth, there's 2 bays that run in, and then about in front of those bays was a little storage area. So that give them a lot more room, and at least we had everything in one building, kinda. And then yeah, and then believe it or not, we were already had been selling appliances, but you could probably not read the name on those, but those are Firestone appliances. You say Firestone right on them. See, you can almost read that one. Firestone wringer washer. And they had all kind of Firestone appliances and TVs. Sold quite a few TVs early, but when you sold a TV, then you usually had to go put up an antenna because nobody had an antenna then. So that was another thing. So we finally got someone to start putting up antennas because every TV you sold, you had to sell them an antenna job. And then sometime in the mid-50s there, we had that, the High Match used to be very creative making matchbook covers, and that, this was one we had. This was Al Schaefer's dad, Bob Treese, Bob Mosier, and Jim Leadham, which ended up being my partners. Bert Ratta, who worked for us, he was actually my uncle. And Flip, yeah. Then Roy, that would be Jack's dad. This is Secretary Helen Luther, then my dad, Vern. But that was on a book match, which I have one of them back there, just for advertising. Then in 1953, we had a grand opening. They took on General Electric appliances. This was a big deal. Got rid of the Firestone stuff. Got something somebody heard of before. And that was part of the grand opening that GE had this refrigerator. It walked and talked. It really did. And then about a year later, then we took on RCA. So we had the whole GE line and RCA for the electronics. And then there's the store after we've got the big load of GE appliances in. The whole thing was full. It's a picture of Jim Leadham and Jack's dad, Roy, back there in the corner. And that's a picture of Bob Treese and myself that my head's missing. That was out in front of the store. I don't know why we had it, but we do. I just was digging through all this stuff and found it and put it in there. So in the store, we still were busy selling TVs and appliances out. We had General Electric. It got really pretty busy, but we still had all these lawnmowers, bicycles, wagons, tractors. I asked Jack, he got to put some of them together, right? Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun deal. There was forever something to be put together. I don't think we sold anything in a box. It always had to be put together. And so that kept it busy because we still, after we moved, we still kept that old store down there. So that was full of that other stuff. And in the service department there in the back, when they built it, there was no lifts in it. So we weren't really doing too much. I wasn't there yet. I was still pretty young yet. Just doing mainly tire work They had some giant bumper jacks. Cars actually had bumpers on them then that you could jack the car up with, but that's about what we used for a long time there. But then we started getting very busy with, we did a lot of outside truck tire work for some reason. I thought we were a truck tire center or something, but evidently no one else in town wanted to change truck tires, so we ended up doing it, which was right across the street from us. It's pretty handy. Smith Dairy, we did all Smith Dairy trucks that lived in Wadsworth. And then we did all of the school buses. And the mat shop had about 5 semis down there. We did the tires on the tractors and the trailers on those. And quite a few other commercial places that had trucks were still doing a lot of them. And we were still doing a lot of farm tire work at the time, because this was still in kind of early 50s. And then we did some work for the, then the box board, which later the PCA, we were always down there too. We used to do a lot of forklift tires, and they had this giant big paper loader out in the yard there that we always did the tires on that too. Those were something else. So we were busy doing a lot of different things. And then, like I said, in the store, they were really getting busy with the appliance stuff. And by now, we had 2 TV repairman, appliance repairman, appliance delivery crew, and the people we had working in the garage here for the cars. And then next door to our old store down there, I don't know if anybody remembers, Bob All had a grocery store down there, a meat market, was right next to our building. Well, when he went out of business, I forget what year, but anyway, we took that building too. So we had those 2 buildings down there and the Star Theater. So they knocked a hole in the wall between the 2 stores so you could go between them from inside, build a TV repair shop in the back of that all building. And then the front part and the other store eventually ended up being a toy store, full of toys. Had a lot of toys. And in the basement of that store, we had full of tires, which was real handy because we'd mount them clear down the end of the alley across the street, but the tires are clear over here. So then about probably, and I was probably a freshman in high school, probably about 54 or 55. Of course, high school was still downtown, so after school I would just walk over and go to work. And I didn't drive yet, so I seemed to inherit that Smith Dairy job. You know, that was real handy. I think, oh, he can walk over there, fix him. And back in them days, truck tires were all tube type, so they always had a flat. You know, they had one run over a nail, there was no slow leaks, they were flat. So either the Smith Dairy, every night, they either had 1 or 2 flats, in the school always had flats. So you'd either be both places every night. But anyway, when I was probably only 14 or so, I'd come to work and invariably have to go over there and crawl under them trucks, jack it up, and pull the tire off, roll it over to the store, fix it, take it back over, put it on, you know. And it was kind of a messy job because when you'd crawl under them trucks, in those early days, those trucks weren't refrigerated. And the milk was all in bottles yet. There was no paper, you know. This is pretty early. So when they'd load those trucks in the morning, they had this giant ice machine in the back. They'd put bags of ice on top of every case of milk. And it was just full of ice, that truck, when it left. Well, when it come in at night, that ice all melted, you know. So there's water running everywhere when you crawled under there. There's water. And they always used to break a bottle of milk, so there's milk running out of it, water running out of it, you know. But anyway, I got over it. I thought it was kind of neat because I got to go over there and used to drive them Divco milk trucks. You could stand up to drive them, you know. And I didn't even have a driver's license yet. I'm over there driving around, you know. So, yeah, stood up to drive them. But we got through that, and then as we got older, then the school. And I never really did much. I never did any farm tire work. Bob Treese did all that, and then all of the mat shop. I rarely ever got into that. He did all that. But the school, now that's a different story. We were out at that school forever. We must have did those school tires for probably close to 20 years. And it was all this stuff, even the dairy and all of them, of course, was bid. You had a bid on everything, and if you got the job, you got the job. But anyway, we ended up doing that for many a year, and we'd be always out there. And in the early years, they didn't have any garages for those buses. They were outside in the gravel, so you'd be out there in the gravel, in the snow, or whatever, changing them tires. And they were pretty conservative then. Old Bill Heil, he was the treasurer, and he had his close eye on the money. So every time they'd get a new bus in, we'd have to hustle out there and take all the new tires off the back, put 4 retreads on it, and they'd save those new tires for the front. You know, all the buses had the same size tires, so then they run all retreads on the back. But and then every summer when they'd get them inspected, and they wouldn't pass, and they'd tell them we'd end up putting, I don't know, bunches of tires on them every summer out there. Of course, we had all summer to do them, but it usually took all summer to do it. But anyway, we got all that done and got through it with nobody ever getting killed. The old truck tires in them days you had to know pretty much what you were doing. They all had the lock rings on it. That could severely injure you, or worse, if you didn't be very, very careful. So then it's about 62. About 1963 then, we started getting busier in the service department, and we kind of remodeled the whole thing in front of those 2 bays that come off of Wautroosa. There was a little storage area. Tore that out and put a front end alignment bay in there in the back that come off of the alley there in the back, and then we could get through and put 2 lifts in it, all kinds of stuff, a whole bunch of tune-up equipment, a lot of brake equipment and lathes and stuff. So we were pretty much set to go. Then we could do about anything on a car by then, because the other stuff was kind of dying down, like the bread business. I'm thinking they knew what they were doing, because I don't know how long the home delivery bread business lasted, if any of you ever had any. You probably had a milkman. I think the milkman lasted longer than the bread man. But anyway, the Smith Dairy eventually stopped home delivery, and eventually moved back to Orville, so we didn't have to do them anymore. And the mat shop, I think when they got bought out by Hunt Foods, they decided they didn't need any trucks. They were going to just hire hauled, so we got out of that. And by then, the farm tire business was about history. There just wasn't many farms left around here anymore. So that outside work pretty much went away, except for the school. That hung on and hung on and hung on till early 70s. We were still doing school work. But so now that we have this new and improved service department over there, this is still all across the street there at the old Star Theater building. We took what little storage there was left back there out, so now we have nothing. So everything we sold, we had to go somewhere to get it. Yeah, we had stuff everywhere. You had to remember where everything was, and then you had to go get it. The tires, well, like I said, we had the tires across the street over in the basement of that all building, so you'd have to go out the door, cross Wadsworth, all the way up that alley, down the steps, get your tires, carry them up the steps, roll them all the way down that alley, cross the street, and in there and put them on the car then. And same with batteries. And then we had, behind Sharky's Barber Shop, I don't know if you were ever back there, it's still there today, like a little garage sticks out there with an overhead door on it. But actually it's pretty big. There's 3 levels in there. And we had that all the time, and we kept hundreds and hundreds of snow tires, back when snow tires were big business. So we had that thing full of snow tires all the time, which was a little handier. You just walk out the back door in order to get them. And then we had another warehouse out on Gypsy Lane. Who remembers that name? Which is now Hartman Road. Yeah. Well, it was out there off 261. It was an old chicken coop, 2 stories. And we had the top of it full of bicycles. I mean, we sold bicycles. Unbelievable how many bicycles we used to sell. And lawnmowers in the bottom. And then bus tires. We had a warehouse all those bus tires were. So that was full, but that was a little trip every time you had to go out there and get something. Then the appliances, we had that behind the Sacred Heart Church. There was an ice house back there still. Or well, it's gone now. The church tore all that out. But it belonged to Lake City Coal. Yeah. And there was a railroad track right across there, right up through there. But anyway, that ice house was there for years. We'd rented that for years. We either had it full of something, tires, appliance. We had it all full of appliances for a while. Then eventually we had that whole, rented that big thing in the back for the appliances. And us and Bixler's were in there together. We had the same warehouse. And we still kept that front part because we had that full of more tires. And at that time, when you took tires off, they were called casings. They had some value to them, so you had to save them to get retreaded, because when we'd buy 1,000 retread snow tires every winter, you'd have to pay for the casings. So you had to have something to go back. They had value, so you had to store them stupid things. Now today, they're junk. When you take them off a car, that's junk. There's no more casing. There's no more retreading of passenger tires. So it's me. So this is about 1964. That was that sesquicentennial parade. That would be me, a little younger version, driving this tractor that we used to sell. Like I said, we sold everything. If it had a motor on it, we sold it. And this was the jail. If you didn't have a beard, you ended up in that jail. Well, And we kept that in our garage back there. That's why we ended up with it. Anyway, that was in the parade. And then, oh, there you go, Jackie. Then, see, that's 64. Okay, then in 65, Roy died and left my dad as the sole owner. Then in 1966, myself, Jim Leadham, and Bob Mosier bought it off of my dad. So then now the 3 of us owned it since 1966. But those other 2 are retired and gone, but I'm still here. So this, we continued on after Roy died, and after we bought it, we went along till the early 70s, and it was really getting busy, and we were getting out of room, so And there's several developers, they kept coming up with proposals for us to wanting to move or build a building and build this, and it went on for a year or so, but finally we decided to move across where we are now. And before they tore this down, this was part of what was over here. This is Jackie's dad, Siffert's Gas and Oil. There used to be gas pumps out front, right? And in the back, there was a big garage inside in the back. This would be Roy Moore's, if anybody remembers that. And the house in front of that is an alley down there, Bender Court. And over here that you can't see, there's a furniture store, Springer Furniture. That all got tore down when they built our building for us and Kleckner's. And in '72, then we moved across the street to where we are now. And that's, well, there you get a better picture of that other building of, that used to be a furniture store. Then there was an alley, then Don Merriman's store was over there. Yeah. And then, yeah, okay, that's the front, that's '72 then, this is the grand opening. Flip it, Drew, I think. Oh, okay, that's Jim and Bob and I then. We're the owners now, so I'm not exactly sure when that was, probably right after the grand opening. That's my dad and I. And even, as you can tell, even after we moved to where we are now, we still had the bicycles and the lawnmowers and, oh man, everything. And that's some Firestone executives that were there for our grand opening, ribbon cutting. More. That's me and a couple more of them. Actually, this other gentleman was Don Olson. He actually lived here in Wadsworth. And that's a picture of the inside of the store. As you can see, bicycles, lawnmowers up here, and whatever those are, small appliances, you know, toasters, irons, mixers, man, you name it, we sold it one time or another. And then that's a picture of across the street after we had moved out. Coon's Bakery, the old Collectors, barbershop. I think that might have been a laundromat then. I'm not sure. Huh?
I think a Medios was there.
The Medio's the next one up, I think. And that's down the street. This is where we used to be. These are empty now. This was about the All building. I don't know. We'd already moved out of it, and they'd already rented it. Somebody put a different front on it. This was still sitting empty. And this is the old gas station that we had. Now it's Wadsworth Oil, bought by a gentleman by the name of Glenn Culver. He bought the, I think that gas station and the bulk oil facility down on Water Street that Nicodemus had. And that's the three of us again. Then in about 97, well, we quit. Was there another one, Drew? What's next? Well, that's Jim and Bob. That's about 1997 when they both retired. So now it's Jim Leadham Jr. and me. And that's it. And that was about 97. About 2000, 2001, we got out of the appliance business, strictly tires and automotive. And since we got out of that back bay there used to be some sort of part of a warehouse. We have room for like 1,000 tires in there in them racks, but there were some other racks for some small appliances. Took all that out and took the TV shop, took that over full of parts, and then put another bay back there with some lift and stuff. So now we have 5 bays that we just use it all. So, and that's just about the way it goes down, and that's the way it's running. And still doing tires, quite a few tires, and a lot of service work, automotive. I mean, this stuff has changed so much. Even the tire business and the car, it's just unbelievable. The tires, you can no longer exist being a one tire dealer. You've got to sell everything there is because there's so many different types, sizes, that and one tire company just simply doesn't make them all. They make what they want, or they make what they sell OE, and that's it. So you've got to choose between 10 or 20 rubber companies to get every size. And then, so now you just buy off of, depending on the size, whoever, so you end up just selling all kind of brands anymore. And then the automotive repair stuff has changed, ever so much too now. It's so much computer and diagnostic work, a lot of air conditioning work, and the usual brake and front end and oil change and stuff like that. So that's about 71 years worth. Don't think we'll make another 71. I don't know. But if you have any questions.
Vernon Knapp was your dad?
Yeah, Vern.
Where did he live and when did he pass away?
We lived on Gordon Avenue. Yeah, when we moved here in '51, we moved up on Gordon Avenue. Ed Alsace lived on one side of us. He had Ben Franklin.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Jim Rich lived on the other. You know Jim Rich? Anybody know Jim Rich? Okay. He was a car dealer. He was a wheeler dealer. We didn't live very long. My dad had a new Dodge. He was a Dodge dealer then, early. Then when Homer Fiskus quit, he had the Pontiac dealer. Jim snapped up the Pontiac dealer. So then, Larson Olds was out there where Axelrod is. They went out of business. So then Jim had Pontiac and Olds for years. Then he was a Pontiac and Olds dealer. So then my dad had a string of Pontiacs after that. Living next door to Jim, you just had to have a new car constantly. So, yeah. Yeah, Willie. Pardon?
What caused the demise of the retread business
Well,
in today's world of recycling and everything?
the only thing that's really retreaded anymore, and that's because you can see them laying along the highway, are truck tires that fly off. But the passenger tire, once the radial tires kind of took over, they had kind of problems retreading radial passenger tires. They had trouble getting good casings because Firestone had a very large retread facility over in Akron. It was real handy for us. They'd pick up stuff and deliver it every week. They would buy it because we did a lot of the bus tires. That was constant turnover of them bus tires. But the passenger tires, like I said, once the radial market took over. The other just kind of went downhill, and it was hard to be price competitive anymore. The radial to the price of what used to be a normal size tire, not anymore, where they got all these funky sizes that are all the low profile stuff. Then they get rather expensive again. But it just wasn't practical anymore, and it was a tough sell. You'd come in there and you wouldn't think twice about buying a retreaded snow tire, but man, it was tough selling you a retreaded summer tire because they just had a stigma about them that no one really wanted them, and they just never ever. Even years ago, even when the retread snow tire business was hot and heavy, I mean, we used to put them things on by the thousands, but never any front tires, hardly any. And of course, the snow tire business all come in one day. First day it snowed, that's when they all had to go on. But that business kind of died too now. You don't rarely ever put any snow tires on anymore. So things keep changing.
Did you just allude to the fact that if you sent in the retreaded tires to Firestone, did you get the same tires back, or did you just?
Yes, if you come in as a customer, if you had some particular tires you want retreaded, yeah, we'd send them in they went in with your name and numbers on them, and like those bus tires, they all come back their own casings, you know, unless they rejected them. You know, a lot of times they get rejected because they wouldn't retread them because of a carcass problem with the casing. But the truck tire business is still pretty big business. But they're, of course, the retreading business has changed too. There used to be, in the old days, when we were still doing a lot of them, it was a hot, you know, they'd extrude the tread onto the tire, and the tire would go into a mold that already had the mold of the tread in it, and they'd cook it, you know, cure it, and it would come out like that. But now the truck tires are what they call cold cap, which they roll, the tread's already formed, the tread pattern's already made. They comes out of a box, they roll it on the tread, on the tire casing, which has already been buffed and everything, and then they put it in some sort of a mold device, and just to cure that tread onto the casing, that Band-Aids. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, Dennis.
You miss not having to stud those tires?
You know, we still do that. You know, I don't think we did any this year, but we still have a studding gun. And the winter we had this year, I had no one stepped up and bought any. Yeah, that was another issue you'd have to. Oh my God! Each tire, you had to shoot them in with a gun. There's like 70 in every tire, you know. And they went in these little teeny holes. We have a regular machine, and you have to shoot one in every one of them holes, spin it around, you know. Takes quite a while.
So who's the Knapp's boys that work with you, besides you and John?
My son, John.
Your son, John?
Yeah.
And there's another one too, right? Was there another young Knapp that worked with you guys? Maybe he might not.
Now?
I don't know.
Well, Jack did when he was younger. Yeah. Oh, you got paid?
Used to take those tires out over there.
See, I don't think there's any child labor laws when you work for your dad.
No, he just told you to do it.
Yeah.
There was no open discussion.
Didn't Jim work with
Yeah, Jimmy did. Yeah, Jimmy worked there quite a while, and he worked for me in the service department for quite a while. And, well, my one son, Mike, most of my boys have worked there a little while. Mike, my oldest son, Mike's worked there quite a while, too, off and on, when he was in college and so on and so forth. But, oh, you got to get them in there and get their hands dirty, and a few blisters and cuts. And anything else?
So what's your future outlook? Everything's going good in your store?
Well, I don't know. I'm still good. We're still going good, so I'm not sure, Tom.
I mean, Grace Church is right across the street, and we're having a lot of trouble trying to keep our attendance up over there because we built that new building.
Well, see, that's okay. You're right there. That is the next problem. We've kind of outgrown our location, or outlived it. I mean, in that parking lot now. What I can remember, it used to be so full you could hardly get a parking place. Sometimes if we were real busy, we had about, I don't know, 20 or 30 cars sitting around there for the day, and the restaurant was busy at lunchtime, and whoever was in the Ritzmann's, Ben Franklin, or even the hardware, that parking lot was busy. Well, now, what do we got? Us and Bixler's are the only two retail places left with an outlet on that parking lot. You got a church, a dance studio, and another church that really doesn't create any traffic. So, you know, we really don't get any exposure anymore. So it's really not a very good location anymore. But yeah, some people I don't think have ever heard of the place. You know, oh, I didn't know that was back here. But it's not good, you know, because you can't see it, and there's no reason. Like I said, it used to be that a lot of traffic back there, but and there might be on a Sunday when there's church, but we're not there. We haven't done the Sunday stuff yet. Hopefully never will.
Tom, we've only been in town since 1991, but we really appreciate the service that you provide to us and always willing to work us in.
Oh, well, thank you, Willie. I know you're a good customer of ours, and there's a lot of familiar faces here, but we try to, unlike some of the horror stories we hear of people come in, you know, that, oh, I swear, I don't know what's so hard about doing something honestly anymore today, but it's unbelievable some of the things you hear people tell you, honest to God. They'll take a car in, or if they had a recall, they'll take it in, and pretty soon they'll come back when they want, you know, it needs $1,000 or $1,500 worth of work, and you know, the guy says, "Well, I never even had any problem with that," but or they'll drop their car off for a certain problem, and before they even think about fixing the problem, they gotta see what else they can sell them first, you know. So they're on the phone trying to sell you something where. Well, we don't operate that way. We try to fix the problem first to come in on. Sometimes that's hard enough, let alone sell them something, then you can't fix the first problem. That's not good. So there's some pictures and stuff back there you're welcome to look at if you want. And thank you for coming. Thank you.